In the final months of World War I, as soldiers began to believe the worst was finally over, a far more silent and terrifying enemy was already spreading across the world. It did not arrive with explosions or marching armies. It came quietly, on trains, on ships, in crowded camps, factories, and homes. By the time anyone truly noticed it, the world was already infected. This was the Spanish flu of 1918. It began like any ordinary illness, a headache, a sore throat, fever, fatigue. Many people assumed it was nothing more than a seasonal flu and continued with their daily lives. But within hours, sometimes minutes, things turned horrifying. Skin turned pale, then blue, lungs filled with fluid. Victims struggled for breath as if drowning on dry land. Doctors were helpless. Hospitals overflowed. Coffins ran out, and no one understood why. The flu first appeared in the spring of 1918. Some believe it began in a military camp in Kansas. Others argue it came from Europe or Asia. Wherever it started, the war ensured it would spread faster than any disease before it. Millions of soldiers traveled across continents carrying the virus with them. Trench warfare, overcrowded barracks, and poor hygiene turned the flu into a global disaster. What made this flu especially terrifying was who it killed. Unlike most influenza outbreaks, which mainly affected the very young or the elderly, the Spanish flu targeted healthy young adults. Strong men and women in their 20s and 30s collapsed without warning. Entire families were wiped out within days. Parents buried children. Children buried parents. In some towns, there were no healthy people left to dig graves. The second wave arrived in the fall of 1918, and it was deadlier than the first. This version of the virus attacked the lungs directly. Victims coughed until blood filled their mouths. Their faces turned dark blue from lack of oxygen. Many died within 24 hours of their first symptoms. Fear spread faster than the virus itself. Schools closed. Churches shut their doors. Public gatherings were banned. In many cities, people were ordered to wear masks, though few understood how the disease actually spread. Some believed it was caused by bad air. Others blamed immigrants, foreigners, or even moral failure. Newspapers downplayed the danger to avoid panic, especially in countries at war. Spain, being neutral during World War I, reported the outbreak openly. As a result, the world unfairly named it the Spanish flu. Even though Spain was not the source, there was no cure, no vaccine, no antibiotics for secondary infections. Doctors tried everything: bloodletting, aspirin in dangerous doses, herbal remedies, and experimental treatments. Many did more harm than good. Nurses worked until they collapsed from exhaustion or illness. Graveyards filled so quickly that bodies were stacked in mass graves. In the United States alone, over 675,000 people died. Worldwide, the numbers were almost impossible to comprehend. Between 50 and 100 million lives were lost, more than the total deaths of World War I. Entire villages disappeared. Life expectancy dropped dramatically in just a single year. And then, just as mysteriously as it arrived, the flu began to fade. By 1920, the pandemic had largely burned itself out. Survivors tried to return to normal life, but the world was changed forever. Families were broken. Economies were damaged. Communities carried invisible scars that lasted generations. Yet the Spanish flu was quietly forgotten. There were no victory parades, no monuments, no memorials for the millions who died gasping for air in their homes. History books focused on the war, not the virus that killed more people than bullets and bombs. But the Spanish flu left behind important lessons. Lessons about public health, global cooperation, and the dangers of ignoring science. It showed how quickly the world could be brought to its knees by something too small to see. A reminder that humanity's greatest threats are not always loud, not always visible, and not always understood until it is too late. The Spanish flu of 1918 was not just a pandemic, it was a warning. When the Spanish flu faded from the headlines, the world believed the nightmare was over. But for millions who survived, the suffering did not end when the fever broke. Cities were filled with people who looked healthy on the outside, yet something inside them had changed. Survivors spoke of constant weakness, memory loss, and strange neurological problems. Some were left unable to work. Others experienced depression, hallucinations, or sudden personality changes. Doctors called it post-influenza madness, but they had no explanation and no treatment. The virus had moved on, but its shadow remained. Families tried to rebuild their lives, yet grief was everywhere. In many homes, chairs at the dinner table remained empty. Photographs were the only proof that entire branches of families had ever existed. Children grew up without parents. Parents aged overnight from loss. In some communities, women outnumbered men by such a large margin that marriage patterns and social structures permanently shifted. The pandemic had also exposed a terrifying truth. The world was not prepared. Governments had ignored early warnings. Medical systems collapsed within weeks. Cities that delayed quarantines suffered massive death tolls, while those that acted quickly saved thousands of lives. These lessons were written in blood, but at the time, many leaders chose to forget them. Science, however, did not forget. Researchers spent decades trying to understand what made the Spanish flu so deadly. In the early 2000s, scientists recovered preserved lung tissue from victims buried in frozen ground in Alaska. What they discovered was chilling. The virus triggered an extreme immune response, causing the body to attack itself. This explained why young, healthy adults died so quickly. Their strong immune systems became their greatest weakness. The flu did not just kill individuals, it reshaped the world. Public health systems were reformed. Disease surveillance improved. Governments slowly began to understand that transparency could save lives. The foundations of modern epidemiology were built on the ruins of 1918. And yet, history has a cruel habit of repeating itself. New flu strains continued to appear. Pandemics returned, smaller but still deadly. Each time, experts warned that another outbreak like 1918 was possible. All it would take was the right virus at the right time in the wrong world. The Spanish flu was not a once-in-a-lifetime event. It was a preview, a glimpse of what happens when global movement outpaces global responsibility, when fear replaces facts, when warnings are ignored until it is too late. The victims of 1918 never had answers. They never knew why they were chosen or why the world failed them. But their story remains, buried in medical journals, faded photographs, and forgotten graves, waiting. Because the question the Spanish flu left behind was never truly answered. Are we ready, or are we still pretending that we are? By the time the world began asking hard questions, the Spanish flu had already rewritten history. But one mystery refused to fade. Why did it vanish? No cure was ever found. No global vaccination campaign stopped it. 1 year it was everywhere, then suddenly it wasn't. Scientists believe the virus mutated into a less deadly form, burning through so many hosts that it could no longer survive. The deadliest version destroyed itself by killing too fast. Nature, in its own brutal way, pulled the emergency brake, yet the damage was already done. In small towns across America, entire streets stood silent. Shops never reopened. Schools remained empty. Some communities were so traumatized that they erased the event from local memory. No diaries, no records, no stories passed down. Silence became a coping mechanism. Even governments moved on quickly. The war had ended. Nations wanted hope, not reminders of mass death. Memorials were built for soldiers, not civilians. The pandemic was treated as an unfortunate footnote instead of a global catastrophe. The world chose forgetting over understanding. But the virus had one final legacy. It changed how humanity thinks about disease. Before 1918, epidemics were seen as unavoidable acts of fate. After the Spanish flu, the idea of prevention took hold. Quarantine laws were strengthened. International health organizations were formed. Medical research funding slowly increased. The belief emerged that science could and must stand between humanity and extinction. Still, progress came with a dangerous side effect. lacked confidence. As decades passed, technology advanced. Antibiotics were discovered. Vaccines saved millions. Life expectancy rose, and gradually, a quiet assumption formed that something like 1918 could never happen again. But viruses evolve. Air travel replaced ships. Cities grew denser. The world became faster, louder, more connected. The same conditions that fueled the Spanish flu returned, only amplified. Experts warned that the next pandemic might move even faster, and then a century later, the world was reminded. Borders closed, hospitals filled, streets emptied, fear returned. Once again, humanity watched an invisible enemy spread in real time. And once again, many of the same mistakes were repeated. Denial, delay, confusion, and misinformation. The echoes of 1918 were impossible to ignore. The Spanish flu was not just a tragedy of the past. It was a blueprint, a lesson written clearly, then quietly ignored. It showed how fragile civilization truly is, how quickly normal life can collapse, and how thin the line is between order and chaos. The virus of 1918 may be gone, but its warning is still alive.